I'm the Business Development Lead for the Hampshire Football Association.
Hi, I'm Ali Nolshati. I'm the Community Engagement and Inclusion Officer here at Hampshire FA. So today we've teamed up with our newest partners, Hey Girls, an award-winning Buy One, Donate One social enterprise that have created plan-powered period products that fund the fight to end period poverty in the UK. So the partnership was set up to do just that, and we now have period products for all our staff members, facility users, and the students at the academy. Before we begin, we'll hand over to the team to introduce themselves and the organisation. Kate.
Hi everybody, my name's Kate. I'm one of the co-founders of Hey Girls and a director as well, and I also manage our donations, so making sure all our donated products are going out to the right people, and I also manage our education as well, so I create our educational resources and deliver educational training about periods within schools, offices, workplace environments, youth clubs, you name it, we're there.
Amazing. I'm Daisy and I'm the B2B partnership manager at Hey Girls. So I'm responsible for the partnership between Hampshire FA and Hey Girls. I also I'm a partnership manager for universities and colleges, so further education. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you all today.
Thank you both. We're so happy to have you on board for this episode. So our first episode today is going to be talking about stigma, shame and period poverty. So we'll start with the first question. Can you tell us what period stigma is?
Yes. So there's a lot of shame and disgust and a lot of negative conversations around menstruation, and that happens in schools, that happens in workplace environments, that happens in the home. And it's a historical thing, and we're moving out of the blue blood adverts, which is amazing, into actually what is the period and what is someone going to experience. So how can we get over that shame, and how can we get over that having to slip your tampon up your sleeve when you're at school or when you're in the office? And talking about menstruation as a really normal bodily function that doesn't come with any shame or disgust. A period is not dirty. It's not something to be disgusted with yourself about. And how can we get over that hurdle and make it a really normal conversation? And that's what we try and do at Hey Girls.
Absolutely. I think what I always say to our partners when I'm speaking to people about potentially putting workplace initiatives in, there's a huge disparity as well in education around periods and period health. And I think that has also caused stigma and is upholding the stigma and taboo. We are still experiencing classes being split up in genders. You know, boys are removed from classes because they don't think they should be learning about periods. And so it's going to be quite tricky for, you know, these people to grow up and not think that it's nothing to do with them. And so with education, which is something that we do at Hey Girls a lot, we're hoping that might, you know, stop this taboo and stigma that is very apparent at the moment. Another thing as well is there's a really, really interesting thing that is the language that we use around periods. So often you might see the word sanitary products, and it's also women's hygiene, feminine hygiene sort of thing. And that can be quite difficult as well, confusing, because if something's sanitary, something's unsanitary. And if something's hygienic, something's unhygienic. And so that's got negative connotations, which is only going to add to the stigma and taboo. So we really making a huge effort to, when we talk about periods, to talk about periods and not talk about sanitary products, but just remove that, because that is hopefully going to have a positive impact on the stigma and taboo around periods.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for that. So question number 2. So we talked about stigma, but is there a stigma around periods, pregnancy and menopause specifically within football?
Yes, unfortunately, massively. And we're talking to lots and lots of different sporting, you know, communities that are trying to overcome that shame and stigma, especially within sports. And it kind of comes sports tends to be quite male dominated, so it comes from the male perspective, not the female perspective. And especially periods, pregnancy and menopause, there comes this kind of shame and stigma that people are weak or less able, or, you know, there needs to be accommodations made to support them and things like that. But actually somebody who's on their period can be better than ever at sports. Your period is very much linked, your strength and ability is linked to your cycle. So there are times in your cycles when you will perform at your best, and time in your cycle where you maybe won't perform at your best. And understanding that can really help people with the expectation of themselves. Pregnancy, obviously you can still play sports when you're pregnant, as long as it's something that your body is used to doing, and you absolutely should be encouraged to keep moving and keep performing and keep expecting yourself to be able to perform, and not thinking, oh well, I have to sit out now. And the same with menopause. Menopause is there comes lots of complications and lots of symptoms, but it doesn't mean that you have to sit out. Yes, maybe there are some times when you're not going to feel like it, or you need to make different arrangements with your period products, etc., but you still should be able to contribute and move your body. That's what's really important when we talk about things like pregnancy and menopause, how your mental health can actually be affected if you stop participating in sports. So encouraging people to keep within sports, but actually just making those slight accommodations that they need to, so that they can still participate.
And I think also, just to add, the stigma that currently exists, I think a lot of it is coming from misinformation and just people not really knowing. So there is a lot of information out there now, which is really exciting. I know we've discussed it before. Nike have just released a really great article, which is harnessing your period power, which was brilliant, because it is just as Kate was saying, you know, you're using different times of your cycle to really help and assist with training. I know Jessica Ennis-Hill, she's been doing a lot of work around this as well, about how you can use your period to help with training in your sports, and how it can be used really well. So, you know, now we know a bit more, and I know that we're continuing to find out more and more about it. It'd be really interesting to see what will happen with this, because actually it could become that, as we say, is our superpower effectively, and could be a really, really brilliant tool to use for people who are trying to kind of better their football career, as it were.
Last year I did a series of diversity workshops for coaches, and the workshop that was the most attended was on period taboo and stigma. And so yeah, I was kind of wondering, there's definitely a desire from coaches and clubs to learn more about it and do more. Do you have any tips on what they can do to tackle the period taboo within their football club?
Educate themselves on menstruation. That education is the biggest, best thing that you can do. Teach yourself about menstruation and about all the other aspects of menstruation, how menstruation is linked to mental health. Look at things like PMS and PMDD, and really understand what people are going through and how you can support them. Supporting people with period products, making people see that there's a choice. For instance, if you want to go swimming, you can still participate in swimming, but having those coaches understanding that people may need to change their period products, and encouraging people into sports when they're on their period, not making them feel like they have to sit out, because the period product choice can make a big difference to how you participate in sports. For instance, if you're worried about leaking, things like doubling up, you know, if you're a competitive player and you don't get to change your period products very often, something like a cup that you can wear for 12 hours can be really, really helpful. So it is that education to try and make a normal conversation and try and make people feel really comfortable talking to you about it. And maybe somebody is really struggling with something, maybe they have endometriosis, where you have lots and lots of pain sometimes and lots of heavy bleeding, and actually what can you do to support that person to still participate? There may be times they need to sit down and they don't feel like it, and that's okay, but if they want to join in, how can they feel supported to do that? And that's the best thing that a coach or anybody supporting a young person can do around menstruation.
Absolutely. And I also know, and I think it is relevant for us to bring it up, but of course the whole white short debate, you know, if you've got anything on there that's not going to be helpful in case someone leaks, such as white shorts or white tennis skirts, as you know, there was the big debate this year, just change them. And then the other thing to say as well is I know that a lot of communities that we speak to, football communities, a lot of people will tell us the biggest thing that they've noticed is actually in clubs that there are no bins as well. So just having a bin in there, that's a really small thing, but can really help people with the worry of, what am I going to do if I need to change my period product? It's really good.
Really crazy sometimes how like small changes can have such a big impact.
So the period taboo, is it more present as in within some cultures, within some religions? You know, is it, I mean, how do they differ? Is it quite similar across the board? You know, it'd be really good and insightful to hear that.
Yes, I mean, we live in a wonderful country with lots of cultural diversity, which is great. A lot of taboo and shame around periods within cultures is very much still hidden underground, and you don't hear about it. And that's because if a young person is, you know, menstruating or having their period, they're kind of taken away a lot of the time. So there are some cultures within our country that still make people go to a different home, sleep in a different bed, not touch food, not allowed to be near a male, you know, are certainly not allowed to be able to go to school because it's so dirty and shameful that you shouldn't attend school, and we hear that from teachers. But with all different cultures, there's lots of differences, and so there are some extremes which, you know, luckily are getting less and less. That's the hope. But you know, not being able to go to prayer and things like that, and things that and what's not thought about a lot of the time and not considered is how is that individual then made to feel, and how is that person then affected, and how is their mental health affected, and if they're not allowed to go to school, how does that have an impact on the relationships with their friends and things like that. And then when they grow up and be adults, of course, then the cycle continues, and that's the way they will treat their children and think about menstruation. So breaking those cultural diversity is such a sacred thing that you have to be really respectful of, and trying to give people the choice that actually they don't have to live like that can be really, really difficult. And we work with lots of teachers about how they can support students without really shaming their culture, but actually you have the right to your own experience in your own body, and nobody should tell you what to do with yourself. So breaking down those cultures is something that is done with lots of sensitivity, but it's very, very difficult.
I think also when it comes to talking about within the football community, you know, that is a good thing to be aware of as well. You know, the fact that we've had this conversation, because it might be that certain people from certain cultures might be missing sport once a month for that, and that would be good to be aware of. That's likely the reason, because you may not know or notice or put two and two together, but that might be it.
Thank you so much. And moving on to a bit of a different topic this time, but I feel like at the heart of everything that you do, there is the fight for period equality. Can you touch on what period equality and period poverty are?
Yes, so period poverty is really threefold. So it's not only just lack of adequate period protection. So it's not only just lack of access to pads, tampons and things like that. And I think that's what period poverty, that's what people think. It's when they think of period poverty, they think of homelessness, people who are experiencing homelessness, and they think of those people not being able to have products. But actually period poverty is unfortunately much bigger than that. So it's lack of products, it's lack of education, it's the shame and taboo that comes with it, you know. So, and also period poverty is quite close to home. I think people think it's really far away. It isn't. It's the kids in your classroom sat next to you. It's the lady stood behind you in Asda. It's the people working, you know, it's the nurses working for the NHS. It is the working poor now, especially as we've gone through the pandemic, the cost of living crisis. people are having to make those really, really difficult choices. And a lot of the time at the moment, people I'm speaking to is mums, and it's because they're making the choice whether their child gets products or they get products themselves, and of course they go for their children. But so lack of products is a massive part of period poverty. Then you've got lack of education. So chances are, if you're experiencing poverty and you haven't got period products, what's the chance you're going to go to school if you haven't got any period products? Is fairly slim. What's the chance that you're going to be able to participate? What's the chance that you're going to be able to fulfill your educational dream? And then also you're missing out on your period education, which they would teach in schools. So you're not attending that. And then there's probably going to be, with that, shame and stigma linked to that because you're experiencing period poverty. So, your friends might look at you differently, your peers, and there'll be difficult conversations in the home because mum is struggling or dad is struggling. So it's quite big. Unfortunately, it is becoming bigger. So when we started Hey Girls in 2018, it was 1 in 10 people in the UK who were suffering with period poverty. It's 1 in 9 now. So from recent research is done. So it is getting worse. Obviously, we do our bit. So making sure that we're offering a buy one, donate one. So everything we sell, we're able to give to people who need them. But the big changes need to make are within government. So throughout Scotland, what they've done with the free period product bill is to get free products into those public spaces. And that's the massive, big bit that needs to change. And then everything will come after that. Once we start talking about period products in a very normal way, the shame and the poverty and the taboo starts to get better. And that's obviously, Daisy lives in Scotland. We'll see it's wonderfully happening in Scotland already, which is what we need to replicate in the rest of the UK.
Absolutely. I think I don't, to be honest, have much to add. Kate is one of the founders of Hey Girls, so has been at it since 2018, and is a really thing close to your heart, Kate. But it is, it is a really, really prevalent issue at the moment. With the cost of living, people can't afford food, so of course they're not going to be able to afford period products. So it is something that will be present in Hampshire FA, and we know that. We can say that.
Yeah, I think that was a huge aspect of when getting period products for our facilities. We didn't want to just put them for people who menstruate, but also for everyone, because you don't know, maybe the coach knows that one of the girls in his team can't access them. Maybe there's a parent who can take them home so that he doesn't have to buy them and think about, oh, maybe I can't get that piece of food. I have to think about those products. And I remember that's something that Daisy mentioned when we were talking about the partnership, and that really sticks with me. Like, you can't know who's going through period poverty, and that's why the products need to be accessible for everyone.
Yeah, and obviously that's one of the reasons why we entered into this partnership as well with Hey Girls. We wanted to also create educational content around these topics that maybe are not so widely spoken about so openly as well. So obviously we touched upon exactly what Hey Girls do and the buy one donate one. Are you working with any other organisations similarly to Hampshire FA, any other sporting organisations, any community groups on similar things like this?
On this one, yes is the answer. I mean, we work with so many people in so many different ways. I love this partnership, but just as you said, Izzy, because we are doing this educational piece, and it's really where we stem. It's one of our mission statements, trying to improve education around it. But yes, we are. But I think also just the way that we work with everyone, because we are buy one, donate one. So we're a social enterprise. So for every, and how that, I mean, just to kind of define it, every period product is bought from us from a kind of business. We then donate to someone who needs it. And so we've got over 200 community partners across the UK, and they look like homeless shelters, food banks, women's refuge centres, but really any community that will have someone likely experiencing period poverty, which, as we now know, is obviously most places. And so we work really closely with a lot of our donation partners to provide a lot of education, and Kate does loads of really brilliant work with them all. I think also another thing that's so great and about that is we were looking into our figures, and it used to be that we would majority donate the disposable to our donation partners, but in 2021 there was a shift, and it's now that we're donating reusable period products to our donation partners, and which is so great, because if you're giving someone a reusable period product, then you're protecting them for as long as they last. And so that was an exciting thing to kind of I always like to talk about. But it also means that those who are buying buying period products from us on our buy one donate one, it means that it's likely that the donation part of the project is going to a reusable period product, so it's got their sort of extra social but also environmental impact as well, which is great.
Okay, and so one of the big aspects of period poverty are the period products. So can you kind of break down the cost? Obviously, sustainable and reusable period products are more expensive, but in the long term, does that work out cheaper than just using single-use products?
Yeah, so I'll hand over to Daisy in a second, because I think she actually has some figures about how much it can save you, which is wonderful. But so it is more expensive to begin with to get yourself reusable products, depending on what products you want, because with reusable products, there's period pants, which you need about 5 pairs to see you through your full cycle. And with period pants, you change them. On average, you can wear 1 pair of pants for a day and then 1 pair of pants for a night. So then you will need to obviously wash them and then rewear them. So they're a great option if you can afford 5 pairs of period pants, and I can't remember exactly how much they are, then you're good for your full cycle. Reusable pads. So we have a couple of different options with reusable pads. They are a little bit more expensive, but you only really need 1 set, and they're super absorbent reusable pads. So if you bleed quite heavily, they're a great option. And again, you just wash and reuse. So you just need to pop them in your washing machine, wash them out with cold water first, pop them in your washing machine, and then just dry them on the radiator. Exactly the same as the period pants. The best, most sustainable product that you can use is a period cup. Our period cups last for 10 years. Alternative ones on the market may differ from that, but ours last for 10 years. You can wear a period cup for 12 hours. So if you're a shift worker or if you're a competitive sport person, you can't change products very often, then a cup is the best, most sustainable choice for your period. You simply just rinse it out and pop it and reinsert it. Period cups do need to come with a little bit of education, because you need to, it's getting them in and getting them out, and I think we're going to come to that a little bit later. But really, if you can onboard that education and learn how to use one, that is the most sustainable choice. And I think, Daisy, have you got the figures?
I do. So buying RRP, say I've just compared them against Hey Girls products. So if you were to, I'm going to go cup first, because it's as Kate said, it's the most sustainable option. It lasts for 10 years. So what's the saving over 10 years? If you were to just use tampons, then you would be saving £714.70 over 10 years, which is amazing. If you were to use pads and tampons, which is a little bit more expensive, then you would be saving £852 over 10 years. In pants, I've actually done 3 pairs of period pants, so for that one, but yeah, five if you can. If you're going to go for 3 pairs of period pants, then you'd be saving for just tampons £612.90 over 10 years, and then reusable pads is 656 over 10 years if you're just using tampons. So it's a big saving. But it also, I think, was really good to know as well, because you kind of have to pay for it, don't you? So you're buying in the beginning, and it might not stretch the budget, but how quickly do you pay this off? So I'm just going to go with just tampons here. But by your 4th month of buying tampons, your cup would be paid off. So you're after 4 months, which is cool. And then by your 8th month, your reusable pads are paid up. So RRP, our full cycle kits, £40.65. They're made from bamboo. They're really lovely. They're all of our period products are made from environmentally friendly materials. So that's really good to know, you're buying quality. But then also our pants, so they're £20.85 each. So 3 of those, £62.55. You've paid them off on the 11th month, so within a year. So it's really quite amazing. You do obviously you might have to find that to begin with, but it's brilliant because you have paid them off within the year, and then you've got them for 5 years for the reusable pads and the pants, and then 10 for a cup. It's really cool.
And can I just add something onto that as well? That those figures that Daisy's got there, that's for, and I hate this word, but that's for a normal bleed. So, but we know that there are lots and lots of people. It's 1 in 10 people who have endometriosis, and they spend so much money on period products, disposable period products. And a lot of the time they have to double up. So doubling up can obviously cost quite a lot of money. So reusable products tend to be more absorbent just because of the way that they're made. So they last longer and you need to change them less. So those figures for a normal period are brilliant. But if you have to use additional products because you bleed heavily or you bleed all the time more frequently, then obviously the cost is quite significant that you're saving. So that's really great for your reusable products.
Thank you so much. That was really detailed, and I learned something new, especially on the cost saving front. So that's great to share. Thank you so much, especially in this climate that we're heading into, and finances are a little bit up and down. We don't know if there's like an imminent recession, so really handy to know that. Thank you. Is period poverty, everyone's kind of responsibility, or is it just for those that are menstruating? What would you suggest?
Yes, periods are everyone's responsibility to know about them, and period poverty as well, for lots and lots of different reasons. We are coming away, as Daisy was saying earlier, from removing the boys. And there are so many reasons why we shouldn't remove the boys from the conversation. I understand why it happens, and I absolutely appreciate a safe space for women and women feeling like they can talk openly. I get that. And there's definitely a time and a place where that is definitely needed. But keeping the boys in the conversations, not only for trans boys, because if you're taking the boys out of conversations, you're taking out all your trans boys who need to know it sometimes the most because they need to be supportive of what's happening to their bodies. Dads, so we have a lovely campaign, Pads for Dads, keeping dads in those conversations. And once you start talking to dads about them, it's really interesting. Once you start talking to dads about periods and period poverty, they want to know. They want to be informed. They want to be part of the conversation. They want to know how to support their kids, their wives, their mums, their sisters. Every man probably has somebody he loves within his life who has a period. And that's when we're just talking about basic periods, let alone things like menopause. So many relationships break down between man and wife because wife is going through the menopause. And that is only because the man doesn't understand what's happening and the right way to support somebody, because with menopause comes a lot of frustration, a lot of upset, a lot of symptoms, which if a man can educate himself on menopause, he knows how to support his wife in the right way. So it's building those relationships, and actually it's making compassionate, kind people, and without teasing and breaking down the shame and taboo and stigma. And believe me, if you welcome the boys into the conversation, they want to know, they want to be in the conversations. It's us and society that have pushed them out. So, and sometimes it's not always well received, don't get me wrong. There are men that go, oh, I don't want to know about it. But it is your duty as a person, if you support somebody who has a period, to understand and to know what they're going through. So yes, it's so important we keep them in the conversations.
We say problem, but it's everyone's responsibility to, like you said, it's everyone's responsibility to educate themselves in the process, but to also be guided if they are unfamiliar with those changes. So yeah,
that's a really good point. I think also there is something that's really positive that we're noticing now, which is because more and more companies, Hampshire FA included, are putting kind of period products out there and are adding this to a task, usually of maybe a facilities manager, or maybe a foreman on a construction site, that is normalizing periods, and actually it's becoming everyone's responsibility in that sense, in a small scale, but it means that people are very happy to talk about it, because it becomes a, oh, could you just add this onto your list of things to order? And then they have to have a conversation with me or someone at Hey Girls about ordering stuff. This is normalizing the whole thing, and that's a really good thing. So there's definitely a positive shift at the moment, and I think partly because of the workplace initiatives that we're seeing more and more, which is great. It's good news.
And putting products everywhere. I think we touched on that slightly, but there's men who are going to experience in poverty, right? So there's their partners or their children who are going to experience in poverty. And if you put, my dream is to put period products wherever there's toilet roll, and people really take them, not just take them for themselves, but take them home to their wives, to their kids, to give them to their friends, whatever, just to make that can make such a massive difference to somebody. That can keep them in education, that can keep them in sport. And, you know, imagine how you felt if you were experiencing poverty and you had no period products, and a friend said, or a boyfriend or something said, I've got these, you know, they're free for you to have, and I've got a constant supply of them. It would make a massive difference to somebody.
It's been really great in the office talking about periods for the last 9 months. I think every day one of us mentions the word period or period products or Hey Girls, and the attitudes around that have shifted so much, and I think that's where you realize that education and raising awareness works really well, because all the weird faces we used to get in May when that partnership was first mentioned have totally dissipated, and people who are very worried about talking about periods are not building up confidence to do so, and that's really, I mean, in my hands, I think that's like really positive. I think one thing that you touched on earlier, Kate, is the impact that period poverty has on people in schools, regarding like accessibility, that kind of thing. I kind of wonder, is it similar in sports? Are there the same issues? Like, what's the impact of period poverty on young people practicing a physical activity?
I think it comes down to product choice and product quality and free products. So yes, there is that thing where that shame and that stigma where you can't participate in sport. We hear it all the time. I used to hear it in schools. I can't do it, I'm on my period. That's so normal, isn't it? That's such a normal thing to say. And I think the fear that coaches and teachers have of somebody saying that's your get out of jail free card, because they go, okay, that's fine. And I'm not expecting people to challenge that, but to say you can still participate. Is it because you haven't got any period products? Is it because you haven't got the right period products for the sport that we're playing? Like Daisy was saying about leaking through to, you know, white shorts. Of course a child isn't going to want to participate in sports if that's their only option. But, you know, getting coaches to understand about doubling up. If you're doing a high impact sport, wear a tampon or a cup and wear a pair of period pants over the top. That's fine. And then maybe wear a pair of tight shorts over, you know, under your tracksuit bottoms to keep everything in place. So it is just that understanding, and no, not challenging children at all. And if somebody wants to sit out, absolutely, that's fine. But supporting them through, actually, you can participate, but have you thought of this, 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 and this? And that's an amazing conversation for someone to have with a young person.
I completely agree. I don't think I think that, yeah, that's great, and I hadn't really thought about it about product choice here, but it's so important, and you know, you're equipping someone with the knowledge that they can participate is also such a nice inclusive thing, isn't it? And it's something that Hampshire FA are very good at, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it's really important, because puberty is a big moment in football. It's when young girls tend to disengage from sports. So if we can make sure that they have access to whatever they need, if that can make them continue play football, I'm all in. Yeah,
because it is massive. It's not only your period, like you say, it's puberty, it's your body changing, it's your body feeling different, it's your hormones going mental, it's, you know, such a big change for kids. But if you can support them with menstruation, at least that's that box ticked, and you'll find that a lot of things fall in line after that. You know, supporting people with mental health, opening up those conversations is really, really important.
I mean, are tampons and cups also equally safe to use? Is there more of a recommendation for a particular product? It'd be great to hear, obviously, from the professionals, recommendations around what people should choose that's right for them.
So safe is a difficult word, isn't it? Yes, they are absolutely safe to an extent. They're safe if you use them correctly. So we'll separate them out. So tampons, everybody's heard of toxic shock, I'm sure. And when I was a kid, I used to be like, I can't use tampons, you get toxic shock. And that's just not true. But toxic shock does exist. It's a very, very, very serious illness, and we'll come to that in a minute. But if tampons are used correctly, as in you follow the instructions, you put them in correctly, and you use them for the right amount of time, and you take them out, absolutely they're safe to use. So most tampons is about 8 hours, and then remove your tampon. The trick with tampons is to use the lowest absorbency that you can. So don't buy super tampons and use them for your whole cycle. Change your tampon absorbency to depending on where you are in your cycle. So people tend to be heavier at the beginning and then tail off. Use a super tampon, use a regular tampon, use a light tampon. Some people are heavier at the beginning and then heavier at the end. So you just need to notice what your body is doing. Then absolutely tampons are safe. The reason that tampons have this kind of toxic shock drama about them, I will come to. But what happens with toxic shock is that the reason people get toxic shock is because they leave the tampons in too long. And we know that people who are experiencing poverty do that because they make the use out of their products, so they're automatically at more risk. Or when you finish your cycle, people forget to take their tampons out. So, you know, when you're very light and you're less, your period is less of a concern for you, you're not changing your tampons as regularly, you're not noticing that you need to change your tampon as regularly, and you're light and you leave that tampon in there and forget about it. Or you come to the end of your cycle, maybe when you start thinking about having sex again, and you forget to take your tampon out and then have sex, and your tampon gets pushed so far up that it can start to become a problem. So we'll talk about toxic shock in a second, but it's not to scare anybody with it at all, but we'll just so we realise what it is. Cups are safer to use than tampons if you're talking about toxic shock. You're less likely to get toxic shock from a cup. However, there needs to a lot of education around cups. The most important thing with a cup is getting it in and getting it out correctly. So with a cup, you can wear it for 12 hours, which is longer than a tampon. So that's brilliant. But getting it in, there are different folds that you need to learn. And I haven't got a cup with me, but most common one is a C, is kind of like a C shape. So getting it in so you can enter it into your vagina. Then what a cup does, it seals within your vagina so that the blood doesn't leak out, and that cup will fill up. Getting that cup out, you don't pull it like a plunger, you break the seal because it's sealed around your vagina. So what people tend to do if they get them stuck is they're just pulling at it like that. The most important with cups is if the rare occasion it does get stuck and you've broken the seal and you can't get it out, get yourself some medical help. Don't go in there with a utensil, believe me, it happens, to try and get it out. Get yourself down to your GP. If your GP is not open, go up to A&E. They absolutely will not mind you being there. I think that's the thing that we're like, I don't want to go to A&E because I think I'm silly. They won't. They'll take it out within 30 seconds and send you away on your way home. So it's just knowing when is the right time to get some help if you need it. But it's so uncommon. It's so uncommon for anything to happen unsafe. But it's just being like, OK, my cup's stuck. Just going to get myself to A and get it out.
Exactly. And also, I think the one thing I was just going to add on is kind of linking it back to what we were talking about, period poverty as well, is another thing that we do hear about people who don't have access to products, is that maybe they have access to a few products, and we do hear reports of people maybe using their products for longer than they should. And so that's another thing to be wary of, is that if someone might be experiencing period poverty, they may have a few, but only a few to last them, and it might become a little bit unsafe for how long that they're using them for. So just as Kate has said, you know, tampons are absolutely safe to use. with the amount of time that it will say, and all tampons will say on their box how long you should use them for the absorbency that they need to. But yeah, there's slight connection between kind of safety of period products and period poverty. That said, you also have that with period pads. You know, if someone's using a period pad for longer than they should, then it's going to become unhygienic and it's not going to be great either. So it's you know, in that sense, we can add period pads to that too.
Thank you so much. Kate, you've touched on it. Can you explain what toxic shock syndrome is, and how to explain it to young people?
Yes, so everyone has this scaremongering around toxic shock, and to give you a bit of history why, in the 80s there was an American company, and Daisy will remember the name but I can't, and they created it was called a mega tampon. So it was a tampon that you put in at the beginning of your cycle and you left it until the end of your cycle and then you removed it. Of course, unfortunately, lots and lots of people got toxic shock and died. That was massive, quite a big historical moment within period history. Yeah. I think they got sued. I'm pretty sure they got sued and shut down. And yes, in hindsight, that's a brilliant idea. It's up there. I can forget about it and then worry about it at the end of my periods. Of course, once that tampon is up there, after it's in there for maybe a day, it started to become quite a lovely place for bacteria to grow and to make you quite poorly. So what toxic shock is once the tampon's entered into your vagina, it draws out moisture. So tampons, and this is the interesting difference between tampons and cups, tampons draw moisture out, cups don't, because of what they're made of, which is why you're less likely to get toxic shock. So with that drawing out of the moisture within inside your body, it causes abrasions. Those abrasions in your vagina can then get infected, and then that infection turns into toxic shock. So toxic shock is an infection. The most important thing with toxic shock, so learn how to use your period products correctly. If you're using tampons, use them as instructed by the box. The second most important thing is if you're a tampon user and you're on your period and you start to feel a little bit unwell, and that is starting to feel a bit sick and wobbly, starting to get a bit of a temperature, toxic shock is time critical. So the longer you leave it, the worse you will get. And people do very rarely get very poorly and die. So if you've got a fever, you're starting to feel a bit wobbly, get yourself down to your GP or take yourself to A&E and just say, I'm on my period, I've been using my tampons and I'm starting to feel a bit sick. They'll put you on some antibiotics, you will be right as rain, they will send you home. But it is that time critical. So that's the tampons that draw out the moisture within inside your body. Cups obviously are slightly different, and the reason why is because they're made of something different, so they don't have that kind of that drawing out the moisture property, because they just sit inside your body because they're made of silicone. You can get toxic shock from cups because of course they can cause abrasions inside your body, but it's much less likely than if you're using a tampon. So as I say, most important things with the tampons is use them correctly, don't forget it's up there when you finish your period, and don't have sex with a tampon in, because it will push it inside your body, and they can go quite far high up. You know, people say I've lost my tampon, they can go quite far high up, and then it is very difficult to get it out. And you know, there are people that have forgotten about their tampon and then they do come out eventually after a week and they've been fine but maybe been feeling a bit unwell. It's like, you know, you've got the beginning of toxic shock. It does happen. So it's really just having that awareness around, I'm on my period, I'm using tampons, I'm starting to feel unwell, get yourself some medical attention straight away. That's the most important thing.
That's where the awareness is so important, because if there's a huge stigma around periods, people are less likely to go to their GP or the A&E.
Yeah. It's like spotting those signs very early, and then doing something about it, like you said, get yourself down to a GP. That's the first point of call, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and not having that fear of going, and they do not mind. I think that's the thing. People think, oh, I'm going to go to the doctors and they're going to think I'm silly or push me out. They absolutely will not. Right. That is what they're there for, and they want people to say, I'm feeling unwell. They want to help people, so that is what they're there for. That's their job.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as well, obviously taking precautions. How is it best to clean and disinfect the cups? Yes, to prevent obviously any issues. What would be the best recommendations?
So with your cup, you need to wash it out with water after every use, so after every change. If you're in a public bathroom and you need to empty your cup, you need to probably take a bottle of water with you in your handbag, just because you may not feel comfortable. Other people may not feel comfortable with you emptying your cup in a public space, which is understandable. So you can empty it over the toilet, reinsert it, and that's fine. You don't need to sterilise your cup after every change. What is really, really important, what you do is sterilise your cup once you've finished using it. So once your cycle's over, sterilise your cup, put it somewhere clean. You could, if you can't put it in a little pot or something that isn't going to get dusty, sterilise it before you use it for your next cycle. But they're super, super easy to look after cups. Once you've sterilised them, that's it. Don't need to use any chemicals or soaps or anything like that.
Also, I think something that I'm finding that's really interesting is there's a lot of workplaces that are putting in, they call them super loos, which tend to be unisex loos that have got basically, instead of it being a loo with or a washroom with lots of cubicles, it tends to be an individual loo which has got a sink inside them, which I don't think that they know this, but actually they're being incredibly helpful for a cup user, because they don't need to be worrying about it. So I give lots of people lots of feedback when they say, oh, we've got loads of super loos coming in. I'm going to say that's brilliant, obviously, because unisex is brilliant and very inclusive, but also you're being great because it means if someone is a cup user, then they can wash their cup out without needing to do anything about it. So it's very helpful for sustainability as well.
Can you, so I saw that your period cup comes with a little sterilizing little box, which my first period cup did not have. I had to boil it in my kitchen. My flatmates were not very happy about this. Can you explain how to use it? Because I'm sure that some of our listeners might want to know more about it.
Yes, that's fine. So the little fold-out pots are lovely. As you say, you can sterilise period cups in a pan like you would with baby's bottles. But if you're in a shared accommodation, probably designate a pan and maybe, I don't know.
Definitely.
But although once you've washed it, I'm sure it's absolutely fine. But yes, we have the little period cup. The little sterilising pots, which are brilliant. So you just pop your cup in, it fits in there quite nicely, put a bit of boiling hot water in and put it in the microwaves for a couple of minutes, depending on how strong your microwave is, and then it's done, and then you just leave it to dry. And those little pots are good because you can keep it in there as well in between your cycle, so it will stay dust free and you can pop it wherever. So they're super, super easy to clean.
That's amazing, so practical. And how do you clean the period pants as well?
The period pants are wonderful because they don't actually add any additional washing to your normal washing, because you wear them instead of a normal pair of pants. So the important thing with a pair of period pads is rinse them out with cold water. The reason it's cold is because warm water will set the blood. That's the bit that people don't, if you're a bit worried about your period, some people don't like, because you do actually see all the blood run out. But actually it's quite fascinating because our gussets in the period pants are black because you can't see how much you've bled, but once you rinse it out in the sink, it's like, oh my god, these are super, super absorbent. Then you can just pop them straight in the washing machine, wash them on a 30 or a 40. Don't boil wash them, just to make the most out of their lifespan. You shouldn't tumble dry them, although I tumble dry mine and they're fine because I'm lazy. But just hang them on the washing line or the radiator. They dry quite quickly and then they're ready to go again.
That's so straightforward.
Yeah.
I think there's always a misconception. People always go, how do you wash them? What do you do? If you, as you know, footballers, if you've got dirty kit, it comes out clean. Exactly the same for a period pant, which is good to know.
Obviously, we can also be influenced, as was talking about products. There's a range of different products now, certainly more now than maybe it was 10 years ago plus. But we can be influenced by mums and our environment about what products we should be using. So I suppose, how do you get to the point of finding out what is right for you? Is it just a case of trial, try variety, or yeah, how would you get to that point of finding out what fits you best?
I think it's really important to know your body and understand your body. And just because your mate uses tampons doesn't mean that you'll use tampons. And if it doesn't, some people don't like using tampons. They don't like. I'm not comfortable. I just don't find them very comfortable, and that's probably because I'm a period pant user. Everybody's bodies are unique to themselves. We're like snowflakes, so you know, it's finding what's right for you. And if you like using pads, you use pads. If you like using pants, you use pants. But and cups, again, there's a lot of talk about cups and things, but some people just don't like them, and that's fine. And some people just don't get on with wearing them. I don't use a cup, and that's absolutely fine. So know what's right for you and what's right for your cycle as well. So if you have a heavy cycle, you may want to use a different product than somebody else that has a really, really light cycle. Someone who has a really light cycle may choose to use a disposable pad or a pair of pants, but somebody with a heavier cycle may want to use a cup and a pair of pants. So it really is unique to you and understanding your body.
And I think also a lot of people, because obviously at Hey Girls we talk about our periods a lot, but and what products we like to use, and actually it's interesting that a lot of people do change it up quite a lot. So there will be some people who have used to be a cup user, but actually they are quite aware that it just doesn't work for them anymore, and so they're not using them anymore, or if they think that maybe pants are better to use. We also always talk about non-applicator versus applicator. That's a really big one. So I'm going to share personally. I'm a non-applicator user, and I always have been. Some of my closest friends, and I've been friends with them since we all started our periods together. They've always gone, oh no, I could never use that. I could never use that. And that, just as Kaya said, is absolutely fine. But it's great for people to be aware that they can change their period products and they can try different things, because they might find something that fits them better at a different time in life. So it's great that people should be aware of all the period products that are out there. And how amazing, about 5 years ago, period pants didn't exist. Now we've got them. And can you imagine if I had grown up and I had been handed a pair of period pants when I was 11, I would be wearing them 100%. So amazing that we've got such amazing different types of products available now.
Yeah, there's so much choice, and there's also period sponges or period caps, which we don't actually make, but there are even other choices if somebody wanted to branch out into something slightly more niche, perhaps. But there are other choices if people didn't even get on with what we have.
I'm actually going to quickly jump in, and because I'm intrigued, obviously, by the discussion. Do you think it changes with age? Do you think people end up going through different trends where actually I don't feel comfortable no longer wearing that? I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, and actually, if they're still menstruating at that point, do you find that it perhaps changes with age?
Yes, it definitely does for a lot of people, for lots of different reasons. For different reasons, like how much money you earn and how much money you have, and the privilege of using a reusable product where you may not have been able to afford that a little while ago. Your cycle changes as you get older.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Your cycle will be very different when you've started your period for the first year, and then will change, and then may change again. Interestingly, period pants are becoming much more common with slightly older people because of coughs, sneezes, the bit of wee. So if you're slightly incontinent, even from, jumping on a trampoline, if you then get period pants, you may wear them every day, in which case then you'll wear them for your period as well, because you've got them in the cupboard. So it definitely does change. What's lovely that we're seeing now is that reusable products, if they're taught in school about reusable products, some kids, their first experience of a period product will be reusable, and then they'll continue to use a reusable product. Whereas when I went to school, you didn't have that option, so everyone started on disposable products, and then you've got to re-educate people to use a reusable product. So what's really nice is that there are lots of kids that are going straight into pants, rather than using disposable products to begin with. And that's normal to them. That's what their mates use, that's what they're taught in school, and that's a really, really lovely thing. Because the nice thing about reusable products with kids is because they're in charge of their own menstrual cycle. Then they don't have to ask a parent or a carer for money to go and buy disposable products at the supermarket. When they've got their reusable products, they come on their period, they're in charge of their own products. They can wash them, they can look after themselves. So that's a really nice, empowering thing for a kid to have, I think.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. Growing up, we were a family of 5 girls, and I was the smallest one, so I always had whatever the other one were comfortable to wear. And then when I moved to uni, I discovered that there was a wide range of products, and now I'm finally starting to find the products that work for me, which might not be the same ones that work for my sisters. And it's very empowering when you finally realize what your body needs and you can meet those needs. I think talking about children as well and young people, one of the greatest fear that the students had when I was talking about periods with them was leak. And when I talked about period cups and period pads, the first question I had in the room was, how frequent are leaks with them and how bad are they? Can you give us a bit more info on this?
Yes, and it's not just your community, it's all over. That's the first thing they say. Will I leak and will I smell? That's what they say about reusable products. And that's the child's fear. Will anyone know that I'm on my period, or am I going to leak through my school trousers or my PE kit? I'm a pant user. I have a moderate to heavy flow, and I've never ever leaked through my pants. I find them, for me, the best option for my period, dependent on my flow. So it's understanding your flow. Period cups, if a period cup leaks, it's either too small. So period cups come in different sizes. They come in a small or a large. I would recommend for children they start with a small, just because a large one is for if you're over 25 and you've given birth vaginally, although that can also, that isn't hard and fast rule, that can change. But if your period cup's leaking, it's either because it's too small, or it's too full. So it's time to change. They have got little air holes in them, most of them. So if it's full, they'll leak through those air holes. The air holes are at the top. But period pants, unless you have a very heavy flow, I would say you're not going to experience very many leaks at all. Especially our ones are kind of, they have a, almost like they're what's the right word? They're not anti-leak, but they have quite a thick around the legs. So they're quite close to your legs, so they're not loose. But get a pair that fits you. Don't go for a pair that's much too big. So make sure they're close to your body. Get your real, dress size. But yeah, I have never experienced leaks with period pants. As I say, I'm not a cup user, but we receive very little feedback to say that they leak.
Yeah, I think that's it. A lot of people with heavier flows, we have actually a few different types of period pants. One in particular, our red cherries, our black cherries, which are slightly higher waist, but that means that effectively the gusset goes sort of higher up. The absorbent layer effectively is really quite big, and so it's really protective in that. So yeah, I would say if you are prone to kind of heavier flows, that would be usually what we would advise someone go for. They're really helpful. I've heard loads of really good feedback about them for sleeping in as well. Yeah. And avoiding the sort of sleep leaks, which are such a nightmare. So if we can avoid them, that's wonderful. So yeah, I'd say for the cups and the pants, there are our best products and against leaks almost.
That's it for today. I can't believe we've already answered all the questions we had. Thank you so much to Hey Girls and Kate and Daisy for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm really looking forward to our next episodes. Whoever you are listening to us, I hope you really enjoyed the discussion, and we'd love to hear your feedbacks as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Daisy and Kate, because I certainly learned something today. Ali, I don't know if you felt the same, but I certainly have come away with knowledge. If you would like to find out more about Hey Girls, purchase products and supplies, check out the links below, which have now just been pasted. And if you are a Hampshire FA affiliated club or league heading over to the Hey Girls website, you'll be pleased to know that you do get 10% off the products on the website using the code capital F, capital A, HAM and the number 10. If you need any assistance with that, contact us, communications@hampshirefa.com. But other than that, thank you very much indeed, and look out for the next episode coming shortly.